world. It's being able to come back live in the garden. I want to come back with a quick video. I had some things I was kind of pontificating on, and thought I'd come in the garden and speak on it. Because I think it's important that you have like not only a understanding but a understanding on world affairs and how things are actually, you know, how they presented to us and how they really are. All right. I'm not gonna be on long, family. This live here is gonna be about the hypocrisy of democracy. Uh, Me and a friend of mine was talking about this, and I thought I would kind of go in the garden and talk about it. Um, I just think it's interesting that when you see, the things that are presented to us on the television, from a geopolitical standpoint, you know, what is your mindset? And what is your real true definition of democracy? What have you ever been told about democracy, or what is your understanding of democracy? And I'm gonna go into a couple of things about it, and I just want to kind of make some connections. What it do, and that's how I go. I mean, I don't know what that's about. I've been having a lot of people tell me that they haven't been able to get in. I've been getting notifications, so it's kind of one of those situations. I'm kind of glad I'm going into what I'm going into right now. So, family, if you're not able to get the notifications and you're not able to get the live right now, make sure you go ahead and check it out. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to videos, because I've been getting a lot of that. But it's kind of going to correlate to what I'm talking about in a sense. Uh, the hypocrisy. You would think that you live in a society where, of course, the Constitution says you have freedom of speech, freedom of of expression, but at the same time, intrinsically, you already know that if you say certain things, uh, there are going to be consequences. And let me repeat that. Intrinsically, you already know that if you say certain things, there will be consequences. Okay? So, what and how is that really freedom of speech? You did? And so, I want to kind of get into a video today and get into a live today about how the hypocrisy spreads. But if you're a younger generation, please, you got to do a little research. You got to do a little historical analysis and go back and read things about the 70s and the 80s, in the 90s, because, you can become so desensitized to what's going on now that you really kind of, unbeknownst to yourself, be giving up freedoms that you don't even know you have. Okay? And so, like when I talked about the hypocrisy of democracy, I want to really start with a question. How many people out there right now have thought about this? There's a huge influx of, we got this immigration problem, right? Or they say this immigration issue that we've had for many, many years, many, many decades, right? But you notice that people from Europe are not immigrating to the United States? The same people that immigrated before, like when the country allegedly first started the 13 colonies, and as far as the Italians, the Jews, the Germans. I mean, so many Europeans would migrate to this country at one time. And there was a story on the television just last week about how the Statue of Liberty was erected and was given to the United States by France, and how they had this passage on it. And that passage was actually talking about how they wanted everyone to come to this country, no matter what your status is, because coming to this country, you could gain wealth, or you could, be successful, right? Well, if you think about that today, that doesn't really apply to the people that are immigrating to this country now. And if you actually notice, unless now, if I'm wrong, please put it in the comment section, whether you're live in the garden or put it in the comments after the video. How many Europeans from other countries in Europe, from Ireland, from England, France, Italy, Sweden, how many of those people do they actually migrate to this country or immigrate to this country in mass numbers? They really don't, right? So it seems like there's only a certain group of people that actually migrate to this country or actually are immigrants to this country, right? And that's why I want to kind of get into how it's really hypocritical, because the same group of people that are migrating to the country, they coming from countries where democracy was supposed to be set in place, where everybody had an opportunity to be successful. But when the people that are voted into office in these particular countries do not follow what they say a international doctrine, it seems that they're viewed as communists, and then after that, they're kind of putting either there's a coup d'état, or there is an invasion, and then of course they have an election, another election, and then the person that's put in office that actually satisfies the United States or whoever's the bigger country over that particular country uh, interest, then it happens. Okay, and I'm just gonna kind of get into a couple of countries, family. I just think it's interesting that when you look at countries like Nicaragua, Colombia, the Dominican Republic, Honduras, Iran, Iraq, Venezuela, all those countries I just named are countries that had what they would say outside intervention with their political processes. And it always seemed that if you do the research on these particular countries, family, there was always presidents that were put in place that would become dictators, and were not doing what was best for the whole country. Then once the people overthrew that quote unquote dictator and tried to implement a system of what they call, liberal liberal doctrines or liberal programs, things that kind of help the whole economy, or nationalistic programs that will kind of have that country be more independent and not depend on outside sources. Those countries were normally viewed as communists. And so what would normally happen to these countries? An invasion would happen, a coup d'etat would happen, and there would be a change in leadership. And so when you look at all this volatility in these particular countries, especially countries that's coming from the Northern Triangle, the Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, I mean, not Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, Honduras, El Salvador, those countries have people actually coming to the United States because they're fleeing, violence. And you got to realize this violence is actually stemming from a so-called democratic system. But the system is not democratic if the people who voted the president into office, right? If that president is not what they say on point with spreading the wealth with everybody, then that president is normally either exiled, like just recently. Let's see, Honduras, a guy by the name of Zelaya. I think it happened like in 2009. A guy by the name of Zelaya was exiled. You did? Because he wanted to establish, more nationalistic approach to his country. That's viewed as communistic. Even if you go to Iran back in the day with a president by the name of Mossadegh, he was kicked out of there. Ahmadinejad Recently as 2005, or just in the 2000s, he was kicked out of there. He was the president of Iran because he talked about the Holocaust being a myth, that it didn't happen. All right. So there are certain groups of people that you cannot talk about. That is not democracy. That is not freedom of speech. Okay. So the last part of what I want to talk about, Father, is just hypocrisy. And like I say, family, I'm in H-Town. And being in H-Town, you know, is actually a melting pot because Father's the number of different cultures here. We have, Colombians, we have Iranians, Iraqis, Venezuelans, Hondurans, Mexicans, Brazilians. We have a lot of different cultures in Houston. And that's what makes Houston so beautiful because you can experience a lot of different cultures in Houston. Okay. But me, actually, I like to think about, what actually took place in those different countries, you know, that would allow the situation in the United States to be viewed as an immigration problem when, you know, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, it wasn't viewed as an immigration problem. It was viewed as an opportunity where they encouraged people to come to this country because this country had, you could have an opportunity to be successful. And so you got to ask yourself, what changed? Well, that goes into what I want to talk about next. Who rules the world? Okay. Well, my hypothesis and my theory is that there were three countries: United States, England, and Israel. Those are the three main power hitters. Because, like I say, when you talk about the United States, we have the most military bases in any country, 74 of them, with hundreds of thousands of soldiers all over the world. Can't be touched. You did? And when you talk about England, they did the same thing in the East. If you have to have a historical analysis, man. And what happened in the East, and what I mean by the East, I mean east of the Atlantic Ocean, Africa, Australia, Asia, India, who they all colonized by? England. Okay? If you go to the West, and what I mean by the West, everything west of the Atlantic Ocean, what did the United States colonize? Everything west. You dig? And so, except Israel. And Israel is located east, right? But they're the only country that can be touched. And they're the only country that receives the more money from the United States than any other country. And you got to realize in that area, there is a group of people called Palestinians. How much do you know about those people? You did? And so, like I said, I just want to come back with a quick live, not too long, maybe 15 minutes about the hypocrisy of democracy and who actually controls the world. And what I mean by controlling the world, I mean land, air, and water. Lord, I like that. Whoever flipping the bill. Hmm. Let's say, who controls who controls money? See, everybody and anybody that controls the money controls the resources. Whoever controls the resources controls the world. Those that control what we eat, what we drink, that's who controls the world. You did? Until you actually can control can buy a piece of land and say it's yours and I pay taxes on it, then you can see there is some democracy. Everybody has an opportunity to own, to be an owner. But as long as you happen to pay taxes on things that you particularly own, then you know those are banks. And all you have to do is ask yourself, you know, what group of people own the banks or control the banks? All the central banks, okay? Even in other countries. You did? So I just want to come back real quick, family. Like I said, let me just backtrack on the video. At the beginning, I said there's the hypocrisy and democracy because you look at a lot of these countries, uh, Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, Honduras, Iran, Iraq, Venezuela, you know, Philippines, Hawaii, uh, Vietnam, North Korea, Japan. All these countries have been occupied or occupied by either the U.S. or England. And so that tells you with that type of occupation, you're over resources. And when you're over resources, you controlling the land. You dig? No, Lord, I haven't seen that, but I'm gonna check that out as soon as I get off the live. Aaron Russo's America Freedom. America Freedom to Fascism. I'm gonna have to check that out. Matter of fact, I'm gonna check that out when I get off on the live. Send me another comment. What is actually is he talking about? And does he refute what I'm saying in reference to those that control resources? Because uh, even in America, just the United States alone, uh, there is a small group of people that control all the resources, and so that isn't an accident. You did, and if you look at Australia, who colonized Australia? England. If you look at India, who colonized India? England. And if you look at, like I said, that's what I'm saying. What happened east of the Atlantic Ocean, it was England, and what happened west of the Atlantic Ocean is the United States. And so, if that you don't see that, that's kind of crazy because um, that's why I say by knowing that, then you can kind of have an idea of how you can actually be take advantage of the situation. You know, from an economic standpoint. Okay, like I said, by paying yourself first, and by knowing that right now they having a G7 summit. What is this G7 summit going to do? These are world leaders getting together, right? World leaders that are getting together to supposed to talk about curing the crisis of the nation, a crisis of the world. Well, what do you think is going to happen after the G7? Wow, that's what's up. But like I said, Lauren, I'm not one reach, one teach. That's what's up. Cool. Okay, because I'm just kind of baffled, you know, because there are so many people right now that don't understand that eventually in the next 12 to 18 months, and I'm not Nostradamus, but when this economy crashes, you know, I'm just want you guys that's in the garden right now to understand that there's a great opportunity for you to be successful from it. All right. It's the system is not set up like this by accident. Right? Now, will you be one of the top percenters? No, that's not happening. That's a bloodline situation. And if you know anything about the history of the world and the history of America, you know, this is a bloodline situation. It's not an accident that, uh, you know, Obama can say that he's related to Cheney, who was the vice president of Bush. You dig? So this is not an accident that a lot of the stuff, if you just kind of pay attention to, they telling you right there. I mean, all the truth is hidden in plain sight. You just have to, and ignorance is bliss. If you want to remain, man, being, this food for thought right now, I really don't want to deal with. I don't want to know that, where I live in this country, uh, the United States goes to other countries and not only meddle in their elections, but actually dictate who runs their countries. You only tripping on that because you don't understand what happened east of the Atlantic. You don't understand what happened in Australia. That there's a whole group of people called the Aboriginals. They tell you in the name, you know, or what's going on in Africa right now, where China is basically just kind of raping Africa. You did? And so, and what do you mean by rape? And I hate to use that connotation. Matter of fact, let me take that out. Let's say exploiting, because what they're doing is what they call predatory. and they go in, they bail out a lot of these African countries by giving them loans. And when the African countries can't pay back the loan, well, guess who owns the resources of that country? China, right? So do your research. You'll see that there's a big impact, a big influence or interest that China has in Africa. So this whole tariff, United States, China thing is bogus. Okay, and I just found out just the other day that the particular U.S. China tariff is actually supposed to affect every U.S. household by $549. What does that mean? Nephew, the Amazon is next. Well, the Amazon, if you kind of looking at what's going on, like I say, right there in the G7 summit, all those global world leaders, you would think right now they would say, "Hey guys, this is Mother Nature. This is the Earth. Let's come together and go extinguish that fire right now and go get it done now." But if you're conscious, then you know that if they burning it down like that, and that's such a beautiful area, then they burning it down for a reason. And with so many acres of land being destroyed, you think that land is going to grow back? No, because of course they're going to go in there and they're going to build on that land. Come on, man. I mean, you know, when your third eye is open, you begin to see things for what they are and not how they're presented. And if you did not check me out last night on my live, there's something called misinformation. But when you're conscious, you better see things for what they are. I mean, if you ask, and what's so crazy about it, being a teacher, I have students of a lot of different cultures. I have students that are Venezuelan. I have students that are Honduran, Colombian, Nicaraguan, Mexican. And I tell you, it's unfortunate that a lot of my students, they don't know the the reasons of the particular intrinsic reasons why the family left their countries to come over here, right? And you got to ask yourself, why doesn't European people immigrate to this country in mass numbers anymore? Okay, so like I say, now that's why I think it's a great opportunity as well to look into international uh, domiciles. Why not be able to expand your horizon and go other places? Because remember, if the United States is dictating their policies, then you being a United States citizen going over there, believe me, if they're taking advantage of the citizens over there, come on, man. You trying to tell me you can't go to those countries and gain land? They just don't tell you that. I mean, there's a huge number of people with money that goes to all these countries that the United States explore to buy massive acres of land to gain massive wealth. See, we over here thinking that the only wealth we can gain is by getting a good job or by getting promotions or by joining the military or by going to college and accruing a student loan debt. Really? And that's why financial literacy is very important, and that's why thinking outside the box and giving yourself an opportunity to learn something internationally, like and guess what, family? Just using your third eye and being conscious, because like I talked about in a previous video, we're all energy. In our lowest existence, we're energy. We can actually manifest our own reality. Because remember, they tell us that we're atoms, protons, neutrons, electrons. So at our lowest existence, we're energy. You did? When we come to this existence, even if you're a religious person and you believe in heaven and hell, well, it's not your body physically going to those locations. It's a spirit, and the spirit is energetic. So we basically know in our subconscious that our existence is predicated on a three-dimensionality based on carbon. But at our lowest existence is energy. That's why we're able to have a dream or have intuitions or have what they call ESP or have what they call deja vu. And a lot of us have experienced that where we're like, damn, I've been here before. Don't discount that. How do you explain that? Okay. And so understanding that, then you have to kind of not have to, but explore the notion of our chakras and that we have, different levels of chakras that it's not an accident that the higher we go, that's where our intelligence center is located. And in our midsection is where all our health and immunities are located. That's not by accident. And so when you think about it from that standpoint, then raising your chakras to a level where you're actually thinking about things consciously and understand that, okay, hey, hypocrisy of democracy actually means that it's democracy only if these particular countries have leaders that are being what they will call transnationalistic, are able to give other people, other countries, an opportunity to gain wealth and not just have their country gain the wealth. We don't want that unless you're one of the big three: Israel, United States, and England. You did? So so raising your chakras would do that. Okay, eat healthy foods would do that. All right, it's not an accident that when you're drinking sodas and you're drinking that when you're eating fast food and eating all the junk food, the chips and the candy and all that kind of stuff. That stagnation that you're not conscious of is not by accident. The stagnation is done to keep you from being conscious, because the more conscious you are, the more you'll be able to make better decisions and actually see that, okay, hey, this is really not a democratic society that I live in. It's what they call a conditional democratic society. And so even at our lowest level, if you're not speaking on terms that are, conducive to what they would call the matrix or the program, then you'll be viewed what they call an extremist. It's not an accident the numbers that I have are not where they would normally be, because, like I say, a lot of the truth they don't want out there. You did? But fam, I want to come back with a quick live, and I hope, like I say, nephew and Lauren, hope you guys enjoyed it. And those that's in the garden, I really appreciate it. And in the meantime, between time, in the Most High side, bring you joy. And remember, it has to be hypocrisy and democracy if we're in a society where you just go to California and they have what they call Skid Row. And they have all these thousands of people living on the streets. It has to be hypocrisy or democracy when we have what they call a CPS system, a program which is Children Protective Services. And we have all these children living in shelters. Or we have women that are in abusive shelters. Or we have soldiers, ex-soldiers or ex-military or veterans, rather, that are on the streets or being evicted from homes. So it has to be, okay? So in the meantime, between time, family, the Most High side to bring you joy. And being well is out of 5,000.